Taking inspiration from Software's hit games, creative Soulslikes such as Lies of P and Hollow Knight cleverly reinvent the genre. However, the recent Lies of P is only the latest in a long line of successful and well-liked Souls-like titles from other developers. Number 5. Code Vein. Code Vein comes from Dark Souls publishers Bandai Namco, but without From Software developing it. The inspiration is clear to see from the gameplay. Its melee combat, character creation, boss fights, and more all remind players of From Software gameplay. Nonetheless, Code Vein has its own innovations, most notably the presence of AI partners in combat. This adds a unique dynamic to the game and lets its gameplay explore areas Dark Souls shies away from. Its aesthetic is also over-the-top and anime-esque, unlike the more grounded and Western-inspired design of the Dark Souls franchise. Number 4. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The Star Wars universe can feel like an unusual choice for a Souls-like game. Its stories tend towards the optimistic and futuristic compared to the grim fantasy aesthetic of Dark Souls. Nonetheless, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has become one of Star Wars' most beloved recent video games thanks to its adoption of Souls-like gameplay. Dark Souls fans recognize Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order's fluid melee combat and checkpoint system from Software games. The result is some of the most satisfying action in a Star Wars game ever. However, Fallen Order keeps the inspiration to gameplay. It tells a much more upfront story that feels like a classic Star Wars movie. Number 3. Lies of P. Lies of P clearly harkens more to From Software's own Souls-like Bloodborne than it does their flagship series. It has the same aggressive kinetic combat and iconic Gothic Victorian setting that set Bloodborne apart from the company's other titles. Many fans and reviewers have noted Lies of P's Bloodborne similarities as a significant positive. Lies of P isn't a complete rehash of one of From Software's most beloved titles. Its retelling of the Pinocchio story in a brand new setting is new ground for the genre. Its mechanics include a mechanical arm similar to Sekiro, shadows die twice, and a more upfront plot driven by the player's choices. Many think these new elements heighten Lies of P above other Bloodborne-inspired games. Number 2. Blasphemous 2. Blasphemous 2 is one of several titles that take elements of Souls-like games and transpose them into an entirely new genre. Dark Souls and Bloodborne draw on the Metroidvania genre, with dense environments full of secrets that reward backtracking. Blasphemous 2 puts these elements to the forefront as a 2D action-adventure game. Blasphemous 2 lacks the RPG elements common to most Souls-like titles. Players have limited choices for weapons and movesets, and very limited ways to alter their stats. Nonetheless, its guilt fragments mechanic, interconnected world design, and challenging boss fights that emphasize learning boss patterns are reminiscent of the Souls-like genre. Number 1. Nioh 2. The Nioh franchise blends admitted Dark Souls gameplay with elements from other franchises. Its melee combat, although familiar to fans of previous Team Ninja games, draws heavily on the typical Souls-like formula. However, its loot system is more reminiscent of Diablo or Destiny, where players constantly get slightly better equipment to change their playstyle. Nioh 2 evolves further away from the Dark Souls franchise. It introduces new combat mechanics and has an increased emphasis on multiplayer gameplay. As a result, it has some of the slickest gameplay of any recent action RPG with many more accessible elements than From Software games. Some even consider it a direct improvement over Dark Souls. If this video helped you, then don't go anywhere without subscribing to the channel.